electronic and electrical engineering. I'm Dr. Laura Toni, and today I'm going to present you a series of master programs that we have in EEE that goes from communication systems, networking, up to integrated machine learning systems. So from here, the title, from communications to machine learning systems. So I will try to keep the presentation short because the idea is to show you the essence of the programs. The full details are anyway available online in multiple sources that you can find in our website. So I didn't want to be too boring in that sense. I just mainly wanted to stress the few bits that I feel are important for those that are willing to study at UCL. And then I think it's best to have more time for questions, okay? So I will have a presentation. Please really feel free to leave any question in the Q&A box. And at the end of the presentation, I will go through that and I will reply to the question, okay? So you should all see my screen. If you have any trouble, just let me know in case, if you can. And let's go. So the theme of the presentation is join us in the journey of connectivity, sensors, and data. So EEE, the idea of the presentation is to show that the EEE postgraduate programs are related to this aspect. So it's not only comms, it's not only sensor, it's not only data. It's a kind of mix of all of these that define the essence of an engineer, of an electrical and electronic engineer nowadays. So connectivities, because we have communication and network background that we develop in most of our MSc programs, and is essential for everything, right? For remote working, for any type of IoT project and sensor, for Netflix and other media streaming you use, for virtual reality, anything that you can think at in the future. Even machine learning is built on data, and data are connected via connectivity and sensors, right? So there are really roots of future and nowadays and future technologies that are in EEE background that we develop in our MSc program. So it's connectivity, sensors. So we also have a quite strong background that we develop during our programs in sensors, IoTs, medical, healthcare sensors, and aspects like that, but also data. That's why I will also present you the program of integrated machine learning systems, all right? We have multiple programs, as I just mentioned. One is telecommunications, the MSc on telecommunication. There is also the IGDP for those that are working and want to have more a part-time option. I will not differentiate because the topics are the same, but there are two ways or format in which you can carry out the studies. Wireless and optical comm, MSc, the internet engineering MSc, the integrated machine learning system MSc, and the telecommunication MRes. I'm going to give you a little bit of details of those. The telecom MRes is kind of apart just because it's an MSc building on telecommunication background, but with a strong push on research. Okay, so that's why it's a darker color box that you can see here. And let's see a little bit what is the structure for these programs. What do they have in common and what is different? Of course, you can already understand the differences at the high level from the name, right? So one is more telecommunication oriented. One is more looking at wireless and optical comm. One is internet engineering. So it's not only comm, but it's also more sensor and IoTs. An integrated machine learning system is looking at ML background, but from a EEE perspective. So really, how do you build the data? How do you collect the data? How do you process the data? How do you analyze and infer from data? Okay, so basically, if you look at the MSc in telecom, wireless and optical, engineering, and integrated machine learning systems, you will see that they have a very similar structure. So if you come to UCL and you study these programs, you will have all of these. They have dissertations, that is 60 credits. They have some professional development modules for you to learn skills in presenting, writing, and aspects like that. The telecom ones, so the three ones that also have introduction to telecommunication network as a first module that is taught to all students in 1 or 2 weeks. So it's a very intense to give an idea on what the telecom networks are. And this will be formative for the rest of the studies. So then you will have compulsory modules. So each program has some compulsory modules. Of course, they are different depending on the module, but we'll have 4, 5, 6 actually for the MLS, but the others are 4 compulsories. And then you can pick some optional ones. Okay. So this is a little bit of the structure that you have. You can see that you have quite some options in deciding the type of direction you want to take, because you have these 4 directions, but even in each direction you have many options, right? And actually here we actually are adding now a few other options that are not here yet because they are developing, but the options are increasing every day. And let me say that, of course, as you saw, there are kind of 3 programs that are highly related because they have the comm as a background or overlapping topic. And they really aim at developing communication networks, wireless principle, multimedia systems, data analysis, and IoT. And all of these programs, they will develop quite strong coding schemes, okay, mainly Python based, but we really stress a lot the Python and the coding skills are large because it's also what you're going to use in the MSc project, final project. The integrated machine learning systems is going to generate a different background in the students that are taking this path, that is strong knowledge on machine learning and data analysis, privacy, IoT, cloud computing, and again, coding skills. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit more about the details of these programs. So if you look at the MSc Telecommunication and Internet Engineering, you will see here, I just wanted to put some extended name of modules that you have for you to have an idea. This information is all available online. That's why I didn't want to take too much time in discussing about it, because it's really something that you can find online. I just wanted to show you a little bit few aspects. So for example, in the Internet Engineering, we have Internet of Things as a compulsory module, of course, because it's essential to this MSc. And you're going to work in the IoT module. For example, you work both on collecting the data, so building a prototype that allows you to, so the hardware that allows you to collect the sensors, data from sensors for a specific purpose, and then you process the data on the cloud. So you also interact with IBM clouds and collecting the data, uploading to the clouds and processing in the clouds, for example. So that's the kind of something that is a little bit different between these two. In the MRES in telecom, let me say a little bit more about that. So the difference between the MRES and the other MSc programs is that the MRES have a strong component on the dissertation. So the dissertation usually in the other MSc is something that you start around April. In the MRES, we expect you to engage with the supervisor at the beginning of the year. Ideally, toward Christmas, everything is already sorted out and you start to work toward the final project quite sooner than the other MSc programs. And of course, it's also in heavier credit, and therefore you take less modules. So you have the core ones, but not the optional ones. Okay, so that's a little bit to tell you the difference. While the difference with the IMLS, so the Integrated Machine Learning System, is first, let me say that is the most recent program we have. Is not so recent anymore, but it is still one of the newest one we have. And it's really trying to look at data from this engineering perspective of how do we collect the data, so data acquisition, analysis, and processing. What is the data networks underneath? What is the Internet of Things? So how do we get the sensor, the hardware related to that, and still the interaction with the cloud? And then we also have cloud edge computing and privacy. So it's a kind of looking at data not only from the communication perspective, but also from the analysis one. And this is exactly what the same idea of what I told you before about the courses that would have been developed, okay? So these are the core ones, so applied machine learning 1 and 2, data acquisition and processing, cloud edge computing, security and privacy, and the seminars on emerging topics on ML. Okay, let me tell you a little bit of timeline. That is what I told you quickly before, but here you have a visualization of it. So you have term 1 and term 2, in which you will do most of your module, especially if it's an MSc program and not MRes. And then some of these modules will have courseworks that are, for example, maybe after term 1. Some other will have exams. Exams usually happen in term 3, okay? And then for the project timeline, around November, you get the list of projects available in the department. Then toward January, you get the finalization of the project selection. So which project do you get? And then after Easter, usually you actively start on the project. And September, beginning of September, it's when it's the due date for the dissertation. Okay, so that's a little bit an idea. And one thing that I would like to stress before concluding is that I think UCL offers an excellent possibility for you to learn vital and essential background skills, but also to study in an environment that is very focused on research with the excellent results and research projects that we have. So here I just wanted to show you a few of them, just for you to get a feeling of the type of projects that you could have if you get to engage in the MSc program. Okay. So for example, this is OptoCloud, so ultra-fast, optically interconnected heterogeneous data centers. This is one possibility. Learning privacy for Internet of moving visual things. That's also another aspect of visual and data privacy. Lightweight deep learning on information theory. So the aspects of comm and information theory, it's something that you can then also have more applied to deep learning strategies. We also have, projects that are leakages. Wait, that I don't see anymore because there is this. Yeah, okay. Leakages detection in water networks. That's also another aspect. For example, you can apply your skills on machine learning or also sometimes networking strategies to understand if you can localize leakages in water networks. Quantum dot on silicon system for communication, information processing, and sensing. Again, this is also a project of creating new integration platform for photonic systems on silicon. Optics for distributed learning. So how do you develop large-scale distributed learning computing systems using new technologies that are partitioning and scheduling strategies over optical networks? Another is also more really comm-oriented, that is non-orthogonal IoT for future wireless networks and 5G, for example. So how can you really double the number of devices and transmission that you have for IoT systems? Millimeter waves, again, another project that is of strong importance in this period. Or also virtual reality, holograms, and research relate to that. Also, deep learning-based solution applied to physical layer in communication. And that's it. So this is a variety of questions that you can have and of projects that you can have. And of course, it's just a quick showing on the possibility. And let me know if you have any questions. So I'm going to pause 1 second now, and I will actually read the Q&A box. Thanks. Okay, so there is a question, thanks for the question, that is, can one from physics background from the undergrad studies applies for MSc telecommunication? That's really something that it depends on the physical background you have exactly. So usually the short answer is yes, you should definitely apply. The longer answer is that we look at each studying program and and how good that is for the specific MSc that we consider. So I think usually in physics, you have a strong background in math and fundamental knowledge, which is good for wave propagation and other aspects that are very important in comm. It depends also on how much you have developed, for example, coding skills and other aspects like that. That's also something that would be very vital. Let me take out. Okay. Is it true that UK companies are biased toward UK citizens for jobs and prefer them over international students? That's well, first, I can tell you my answer to that, in the sense of, honestly, from what I see, the good students always manage to find a job in UK, despite their nationality. So yes, indeed, there might be that there is an extra difficulties in visa or aspect like that, but it really depends on it's not the thing that they usually look. They usually look for quality, right? So for example, if you graduate at UCL, we also have MSc projects that sometimes can be carried out in companies. And from there, if you're good, that's your passport to get into a company. So I would not really consider that as a barrier. My students, for example, have been just hired by DeepMind Google, and they're not UK. Let's say physics electronics would be very good. Yes. Yeah. Sorry, I just saw now the extra comment. Yeah. Physics with electronics would be very good. That's why I think in the application, I would say, first, if you have any question, please send me an email, because I'm the MSc director for that specific MSc, so I can tell you more. You can also tell me your specific, you can send me the CV and the transcript, and I can have a look. But what I would say is, yes, it's definitely interesting. And maybe you want to stress more why you think you are a good fit for that program. Good morning. How many places are accepted on the Intern Engineering MSc course? Okay, that's a difficult question, in the sense that we don't have a fixed number, but I can wait. There is also a message in the chat, so I just want. Yes, exactly. Please put question in the Q&A, because I'm not looking at the chat. So I will actually look at this question in the chat, but if you can copy all in the Q&A, it's better. Thanks. Good morning. How many places are accepted on the internet? Yeah, so you were discussing about that. So usually what I can say is that we have about 20 students, because sometimes we have 15, sometimes we have 25, 30. It really depends on the years. With pandemic, it has been also very difficult to predict numbers. What I can say is that we don't have a max number allowed. So once we reach a given capacity, we stop. We admit students that are excellent, trying to shoot, of course, for about 20 students per year as a program, 25, depending on the years, as a rough number. So also looking at, so first in the chat, there has been, thanks Nafta, she started all the key information, and yes, please also contact myself, but also Nafta if you have any question. Also looking at the amount of application fee, can we get a waiver as a student of attending this event? That I will leave Nafta to answer, but I don't think that's a possibility. So, but I will let Navda to comment on this maybe later in the chat, or you can actually contact Navda to pose any question more related to fees, but no, I would say no. But I would let her to give the final answer. And before Yenka has an email, I would like to know the pathway for machine learning application in imaging, for example, processing images for metropolitan CCTVs. Yeah, well, if in that case, for example, exactly. So Nafta has commented to contact her for any question related to fees and visa and anything, and she can direct the people to contact. In terms of about the aspect of images for CCTVs and everything, I would say that that's really something that would be covered in the integrated machine learning program, especially in the second module, in which we have introduction to ML2. You will see that, that you will work on deep learning and computer vision tasks that is exactly related to what you were saying. And you can then also have projects related to that aspect, because we have people in our department offering projects more related to that aspect of computer vision. Okay, I think all the questions here have been answered. Okay. So let's wait a little bit longer to see if there are more questions coming up. So bottom line, what I've said before is we don't have a closing number max. So please do apply. And what I can say, what we look for in the application is first to really show that you're interested in this specific program you're applying, not that it's one of the millions applications you have done so far. Second, why we should get you and not all the other students are applying. I must say that it's oversubscribed as a program, so you should really show why you and not anyone else. Don't be worried about the fact that you may not have a comm background in the undergrad. As I said before, try really just to show why you think anyway you are a good fit, and for any question we can always discuss by email. You may have contact with companies via some of the MSc projects. So if you're interested in that, it's also very good to apply and let us know ASAP on day one of the program, so we can try to maximize chances for you to try to also get interaction in that sense. We have multiples, we really have multiples in comms, but also BBC and other type of collaborations. So that's also something that it's always good. And we are, of course, we have exciting research projects. So for sure, it's not only about the background foundation, but also the research project that you're going to do that is really exciting. Okay, I will wait a few more minutes. Is it possible to have a copy of the slide? Again, Navda, can we circulate the slides? That's something that I would ask maybe to tell us.
Hi, Laura. Hi, everybody. Yes, I believe you can, but also just so everybody knows, we are recording these sessions and they will be available on the UCL website as on demand. So it may just be better for you to wait for you to receive an email from the central UCL team, which allows you to access the presentation plus all these conversations and answers to the questions that Laura has given. I think that might be more helpful for you. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thanks, Navda. That's actually a very great comment. Indeed, there is also the recording available later on. There is a very interesting question I would like to take the time to reply to. Can I apply for an MSc program with pending results in my current undergrad degrees, or do I have to wait till next year? Please do not wait, because actually the sooner you apply, the better. That's always the advice I give. Try to apply as soon as you can, because what we will do is, if we would like to accept you to the program, we will have a conditional offer. So the offer is conditional on you graduating with the given results. So it's really, for example, we will have a conditional offer. So an offer of you to be accepted in the MSc program, subject the fact that you are going to graduate as a first, for example, or with some given criteria. Okay. So in that case, basically after June, when you will have your graduation, I mean, of course, you have to graduate this year. So it depends when you're going to graduate. But if you're going to graduate now, you don't have to wait. Please, actually do not wait.